Have you ever loved someone so deeply that it hurt to let go, but even more to stay? Have you ever stood in silence, watching life choose someone else, while your heart whispered, "But what about me?" This is a story of a man who gave up what he loved to protect the one he loved most. And maybe, by the end, you'll see that real love, the deepest kind, sometimes means walking away, even when all you want to do is stay. Lesson 1. It was a cold, gray morning in a quiet English town. The streets were empty except for the sound of a soft breeze and the ticking of time. John stood by a window in his small room, sipping tea that had already gone cold. He wasn't old, but something in his eyes said he'd seen too much, felt too much. Outside, children ran to school, couples laughed by the cafe, and life moved on as if it didn't know he existed. But John was waiting. Lesson 2. John had once been an army officer. Strong, proud, respected. But the war had taken more than his strength. It had taken his best friend, Peter. And worse, it had given him a secret he carried like a weight on his chest. After Peter died, John returned to England carrying a letter in his pocket. A letter Peter had written for the woman he loved, a woman named Angela. Lesson 3. Angela was beautiful, yes. But more than that, she was kind. The kind of woman who remembered small things, who laughed with her eyes, who made everyone feel like they mattered. She was Peter's fiancée. But here's the truth. John had loved her too. From the moment he met her, he had loved her in silence. Always in silence. Lesson 4. When John gave Angela the letter, she cried for hours. She held the letter like it was Peter himself. And when she looked up, something changed in her. She wasn't just sad. She was empty. And John, standing there helpless, made a quiet promise in his heart. I'll protect her. I'll never let her be alone. He didn't say it aloud. He didn't try to take Peter's place. He just stayed. Lesson 5. Years passed. John helped with her garden. He repaired her roof. He picked up groceries when it rained. And Angela? She smiled again, slowly, gently, like a flower remembering how to bloom. People in town whispered, "They look good together. Why don't they just get married?" But John never crossed the line. Not once. Because in his heart, Peter was still there, and John couldn't betray that memory. Lesson 6. Angela often invited John for tea. Sometimes they talked about the weather, sometimes about the past. But mostly, they sat in comfortable silence. One day she looked at him with tired eyes and said, "I don't know how I would have survived without you." John smiled, but inside his heart twisted. He wanted to say, "You mean more to me than you'll ever know." But instead, he only nodded. Because love, real love, sometimes says nothing at all. Lesson 7. One spring morning, a stranger came to town. He was younger than John, confident, with quick hands and quicker smiles. His name was Michael, and he came from London to start a bookstore. Angela visited that bookstore often, first to browse, then to talk, and then to laugh. John watched from a distance. Every laugh was like a small knife. But he never interrupted. He only asked her, "Is he kind to you?" And she said, "Yes." Very. Lesson 8. John walked home slowly that evening. He passed the park bench where he and Angela once sat during the rain. He passed the old bakery where they shared coffee one winter. Every place held a memory, a moment. He stopped by the river and stared at his reflection. "She's not mine," he whispered to the wind. "She was never mine." The wind didn't answer, but it did carry a single leaf, dancing, floating, letting go. Lesson 9. Weeks later, Angela came to John's house. Her hands were shaking. "Michael asked me to marry him," she said. John felt the world pause, just for a second. Then she added, "I said yes." She looked at him, her eyes searching his face. "But I needed to tell you first." John forced a smile. "He's a good man," he said. And then, softer, "You deserve happiness." She stepped forward, kissed his cheek gently, and whispered, "Thank you for everything." Lesson 10. The wedding was small, beautiful. Flowers, music, laughter. Angela looked radiant, and Michael, proud. John stood at the back of the church, unnoticed, unseen, until Angela's eyes met him during the vows. In that look, there was history, gratitude, and something unspoken. When she said, "I do," John closed his eyes. And for the first time in years, he felt both joy and sorrow. Holding hands. Lesson 11. After the wedding, John didn't return to the reception. He walked alone past the fields where golden sunlight kissed the hills. A quiet peace settled over him. Not the kind that comes from winning, but from accepting. He had kept his promise to Peter. He had protected Angela. And though his heart ached, there was something noble in letting go without being asked. 2. Lesson 12. Angela and Michael moved to a nearby town. Life for John became quieter. The garden didn't bloom the same way. The air felt still. Yet every morning, he still trimmed the hedges, fed the birds, and kept the same chair by the fireplace. Time didn't rush anymore. It walked. And in that walking, John found small comforts, the kind only solitude can bring. Lesson 13. One evening, a letter arrived. The handwriting was familiar, Angela's. It read, "John, Michael, and I are expecting a baby, and we want to name him Peter. I hope you understand." John read the letter 3 times. Then he folded it carefully, placed it beside the old army photograph of him and Peter, and smiled. For the first time in a long time, he smiled with pride. Lesson 14. Months passed. Angela visited with her baby. She placed little Peter in John's arms. "He needs a strong godfather," she said. John held the child, gentle but firm. The baby cooed, touched his beard, and looked into John's eyes with innocent trust. "Hello, little one," he whispered. "You've got your father's name and your mother's heart." It was a sacred moment. Quiet. Eternal. Lesson 15. One night, John sat alone under the stars. He looked up and whispered to the sky, "I did my best, old friend. I hope that's enough." The wind rustled the leaves gently, as if replying, "It was." In that stillness, John didn't feel lonely anymore. He felt complete. Because sometimes, the strongest love is the one that steps back, so someone else can step forward. Lesson 16. Winter came. Snow dusted the town like a quiet blessing. John's cottage was warm, filled with the smell of old books and tea. He now wrote letters he never sent. To Peter, to Angela, even to himself. Words like, "You are enough," and "Your silence was never weakness." These were lessons he had learned too late, but hoped someone else, someday, would learn sooner. Lesson 17. One afternoon, a young boy from the neighborhood knocked on his door. "Mr. John," he said shyly, "my mom says you used to be a soldier. Can you tell me what that's like?" John invited him in, poured 2 cups of cocoa, and told stories, not of guns or war, but of bravery, of friendship, of sacrifice. "Being a soldier," he said, "means choosing others before yourself, even when it hurts." Lesson 18. That boy came back every week. Others followed. Soon John was reading to them, teaching them how to plant things, fix things, build little dreams with their hands. The town started calling his house the Quiet School. He never called himself a teacher, but the children did. And slowly, John discovered a new purpose: to build lives, not for one woman, but for a whole generation. Lesson 19. Angela and Michael would visit often. Little Peter ran through the garden, laughing. "Grandpa John," he'd shout, though they weren't related by blood. John never corrected him. Some bonds, after all, are deeper than DNA. Angela sometimes watched John quietly, her eyes soft. She never said it, but she knew. If not for John, her life, her whole story, would have been different. And not in a good way. Lesson 20. On his 75th birthday, the entire town came. Children he'd once taught were now adults, nurses, teachers, builders, writers. They spoke of how his stories shaped them, how his silence taught them patience, how his quiet strength made them believe in kindness. As he stood there, surrounded by smiles, John felt no sadness, no regret, just peace. The kind of peace only a man who gave everything, without asking for anything, could ever know. Lesson 21. Time moved gently now. John's steps were slower, but his mind was still sharp. He would sit by the fireplace and reread Peter's old letter, the one meant for Angela. The ink was faded, but the words still held weight. "If I don't come back, take care of her. She's my world." John had done more than take care. He had honored that promise with his whole life. Lesson 22. One rainy evening, John fell ill. Angela came right away. She sat by his bed, holding his hand. Michael brought little Peter, now almost a teenager. The boy looked scared. John smiled faintly and whispered, "Don't be afraid. I've lived a full life, a quiet life, but a good one." The boy nodded. Then bravely, he said, "I'll make you proud." John's eyes shone. "You already have." Lesson 23. The whole town seemed to hold its breath that night. People lit candles. Children whispered prayers. John, half asleep, dreamed of Peter, smiling, young, alive. In that dream, Peter placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "You gave her a life, and you gave the world your heart. It's time to rest now, brother." And in that moment, even in sleep, John finally forgave himself and let go. Lesson 24. When John passed, it was quiet, peaceful, just like his life. The town held a ceremony. No grand speeches, just stories. One by one, people stood and shared what he meant to them. Not because he did anything loud or flashy, but because he lived with quiet integrity. Angela stood last. With tears in her eyes, she said, "He loved in silence, gave without asking, and lived so others could rise." Lesson 25. They buried John under the old oak tree, the one he planted with Peter as boys. On his stone, Angela chose the words herself. He loved without needing to be loved back, and in doing so, it became unforgettable. And in the years that followed, children still ran past his house. Teens still read his stories. And every time someone chose kindness over pride, patience over anger, love over ego, John lived again. So if you're listening right now, maybe you're learning English, maybe you're learning about life. Here's your lesson from John. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. You don't need to be first to matter most. And love? Real love? Sometimes it's not about getting. It's about giving. So go live that kind of life. Be someone's quiet hero. And when you speak English, speak with heart. Because the world doesn't just need more words. It needs more people like John.
If you loved this video and want to improve your English faster, do these 3 things right now. 1. Hit that subscribe button. because I drop powerful English lessons like this every week. 2. Smash the like button so YouTube knows this video helped you. 3. Share with friends because everyone deserves to speak English confidently. On the Control English, you get the world's simplest English tricks. Tap the bell icon to never miss a new lesson. Today's challenge: share this video with 2 friends and tell them, this channel will change your English game. Thank you. Keep learning. Keep growing.